When I later taught university, I stopped being so perfect. I had little kids. I just let myself make mistakes more, and then I didn't have to keep having such severe symptoms. Plus, I started avoiding the foods. That helped. Now, with rheumatoid arthritis, there were some Scandinavian studies that have been very, very interesting with about 25 adults, 22. What they did was put the experimental group on a gluten-free vegan diet that also didn't have nightshades, didn't have citrus, and found that 40% improved in their symptoms. And this was the diagnosis about symptom level was by what antibodies they actually showed in their blood to wheat and dairy, and by physician assessment. And PCRM.org has a summary related to that in their arthritis section if you want to get it on the internet. Now, with depression, some of the points here that are really important are that food sensitivities do play a role for some, and I've seen cases, for example, with wheat and dairy, but we list some of the foods in our books, quite more extensive lists. But it could be something different for an individual. Keeping well nourished is important for depression. So if any of you have had depression or know someone that does, one of the big side effects of vitamin deficiency, say for niacin, for B vitamins, is depression. So if somebody's eating a diet that's got lots of sugar, lots of fat, not many vitamins, not whole grains, not legumes, that kind of thing, the good B vitamin providers, well, they are setting themselves up for some degree of depression if the vitamin levels get low enough. So that's an interesting one. Also omega-3s. And certain medications that are used for depression can affect one's requirements for specific nutrients. Also, blood glucose affects our mood. And I've explored this one a lot because we have alcoholism in my family and also diabetes. And it was really hard for quite a few of us to keep our blood sugar level. So we've had to learn how to eat things like whole grains and legumes, beans, peas, lentils. And that really helps keep our blood sugar level. And for some of us, if our blood sugar drops, I mean, we become a different person. We really can. Does anybody relate to that here? That you suddenly look on your dearest friends as maybe not such good friends, and you can be angry or jumpy or sometimes just exhausted. So blood sugar, keeping that stable is very important. Now, next with migraines, this is another area that's really important. That some people get food triggers into severe headaches, and it can be other types than migraine headaches. This has been a tricky area because sometimes it's a combination. Sometimes it's like wine and cheese, plus the weather being a certain way. And so there can be tricky interactions here. But these are some of the primary food culprits for migraine headaches. Okay, now how do we track down what was our food culprit? First of all, some of the challenges here are timing. I mentioned, it's really helpful for somebody who has a strawberry allergy and gets hives. They eat a strawberry, they look down, they've got bumps on their arm. That is very obvious and easy. But when we've got a 3-4 hour gap or a 2-day gap, then it's much more tricky. Again, with mixtures, if something isn't going to show up for a day or two, and by then you've eaten 10 or 15 other items, it becomes very difficult. Dose response variations. People can often eat or consume 1/6 of a cup of milk, cow's milk, and not get a lactose intolerance reaction. But with half a cup, they will have bloating, discomfort, feel terrible. And so it depends on amount. And I mentioned the other factors and food variation, just differences in freshness, that sort of thing. So how do we tell, if we think, gee, I wonder if I am reacting, you know, do I have allergies or do I have sensitivities? Is there something? It is really detective work that takes some time. First of all, you keep a food diary, and you note down the beverages, the foods, and how you're feeling for a number of days. It could be for 2 weeks. Second, you might have an idea, gee, every time I ate whatever it was, I'm just going to have a drink of water. If you figure out a few or one suspect foods, I know some people here have got wheat. What are the different things people are sensitive to that aren't here? What kinds of foods, for example? Yeah? Soya, right, okay. Yeah, so people wonder, okay, can I be vegan and get enough protein and have soya?
Baker's yeast.
Baker's yeast, okay.
Vinegar.
Vinegar? That's yeast kind of thing, could be. Yeah, any more? Well, we'll pick soya as one. I've noticed that with soya, for example, I've noticed that there can be much more reaction to the soy protein isolates in these kind of fake meats, more than for the long traditional foods like tofu, which are somewhat closer to nature, or tempeh from Indonesia, or an Indonesian food that's been used for a long time. Anyway, then what you do is eliminate the suspect food. Okay, I'm going to leave out soya, I'm going to eliminate wheat, I'm not going to use anything yeasted or vinegar for 4 to 6 weeks. Now sometimes people only need to do that for 2 weeks and they already feel better than just for a few days. But then you see if the symptoms subside, but it can take longer. Then you can do a double-blind, placebo-controlled food challenge. That would be kind of the gold standard of testing. Do you know what that means? Double-blind, placebo-controlled. Okay, it's a funny name, but that means that, say you've got your partner's helping you at home, and you think that you're having trouble with soy. Then your partner makes some muffins, and he puts soy in one and not soy in the other. And then your neighbor across the hall sets up a little thing where you try one and try the other, and then you see if you get reactions. Maybe you eat 20 muffins. This is a silly example, but you got the idea. So double-blind means the person that's there, like the neighbor, she doesn't actually know which were the soy muffins and which weren't, and neither do you. So you're both blind. Your partner does, but he's not there. And then it's placebo-controlled because you've got another muffin that was almost the same except for the soy. So that's one way scientifically, which we want to do, because if we think we're allergic to something, that can have an impact. So we can do that real scientific thing, or we can just do it ourselves, and we have one muffin with soy one day, or 6 of them, and one without another day, and then see if there's a difference. Or we can just take a test dose of the suspected food and see if we get symptoms back. So there's different levels of how scientific we want to be and how we figure this out. With elimination diets, we can eliminate the suspect food, or we might have to go on a few foods diet. Like say we just have no idea what it is that's causing this, and we think it might be food. We can go on a diet that includes only the very least foods to be allergenic. And this would include, and they're written here, these are the least allergenic foods. Rice, although rice can be allergenic in Asia because people use so much of it, it has more of a tendency